I have a coworker at my day job that asked me a question the other day I want to share with you. We have a small office, we're all Muslim, and everybody knows by now if there's a question about deen, go see Danny. My coworker sits down and tells me, now get this. She says, my daughter said to me yesterday, quote, "Mommy, how can two boys or two girls have a baby?" Again, her 7-year-old daughter is basically asking her, how can two men or two women have a baby? My coworker shared this with me because she wanted to know how I would have answered this crazy question. Well, before I answered, I first wanted to know what she said. She then told me that she turned to her daughter and said to her, "Sweetie, this is haram." And that was the extent of their conversation. Upon hearing this, I said, boom, gotta make a video. Because we Muslims don't have the luxury anymore of simply telling our kids haram and halal. We have to give them the answer with more depth and more substance. Otherwise, we are going to lose our kids to this new, crazy, liberal environment. So I want to share with you how I would have handled this question had my kids asked. Make sense? All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, we must always remind our kids that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything, from the universe, to the stars, to the earth, to the laws that govern the earth, and of course us, human beings. And when Allah created us, not only did He give us intellect and free will, but He also designed human beings with a specific set of characteristics. And the characteristic I want to focus on in this video is that human beings were designed to be social creatures. Or another way to put it is that human beings have built inside them the desire, the yearning desire to socialize and interact with other human beings. This instinctual desire leads humans to interact. And this interaction leads to cooperation. And cooperation eventually leads to human beings organizing and forming societies. And a natural consequence of these societies is we start developing rules to govern our societies. This amazing human characteristic has been playing out since the dawn of man. Humans form societies and rules to govern their societies. Societies, rules. But another thing that humans develop when they come together and organize is culture. And culture is tricky because it could be many things. It could be food, it could be music, it could be sport, it could be language. And as a general rule of thumb, no matter where a Muslim lives today on this planet, he can partake in that society's culture as long as the action is halal. For example, I do live in America and occasionally I do eat hot dogs and I do watch sometimes football, mostly Super Bowl, and I do speak English, and these are all halal actions. But the tricky part is culture can also be an idea or a viewpoint. And sometimes this idea can end up changing the society in such a way where the society ends up changing the rule in the society to match the viewpoint. It's a little confusing, I know, so let me give you an example. A good example is to look at the US's views towards fornication in the 1950s in comparison to today. Back then, the society's viewpoint in the US towards fornication was that it was wrong, and as such, many states had anti-fornication laws to match this viewpoint. But then during the 1960s, the feminism culture wave came with its free love attitude, and it slowly started changing the society's viewpoint towards fornication. And today, we have nothing but animalistic promiscuity. It's a disaster. And those anti-fornication laws, well, most states have removed them. Or if they're still there, they're not enforced. They're just there like fossils. That being said, though, not all new cultural ideas end up changing the rules in the society. But an idea can still spread amongst the people and change the hearts and minds of the society. And that could be just as effective and detrimental as the rule change. And in my opinion, that's exactly what's happening to us Muslims today. Think about it. My kids, your kids, our kids, all of us are being bombarded by rapidly changing new culture ideas. And in most cases, these ideas go 100% against Islam. And this bombardment is distorting our understanding of Islam. For example, I made a short top 5 list of the new, wacky, destructive culture ideas that's affecting us today, especially our kids. Number 1, gender confusion. This culture now says that there's no such thing as male and female. These are just man-made constructs. Instead, in actuality, there's a spectrum of different genders. I think this is crazy. And just to give you an example how deep it's going to the society, I recently applied for a PPP loan due to the COVID situation for the gym. And on the application, I asked for my gender. Well, on the application, it said male, female, and there's a button for other. See? Wacky. Number 2, gender switching is now normal. This culture now says that if you're a man, but inside your heart you feel like a woman, or vice versa, this is okay, this is normal, this is natural. They'll even let you go to a doctor with no restrictions, even at an early age, and start changing stuff, if you know what I mean. Well, I could suppose you can even say that, you know what, I don't feel like any gender. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I haven't declared my gender yet. They would say that's okay too. All of this, you see, is very wacky. Number 3, fornication is normal. Or back to my original example, again, this society says that intimacy before marriage is natural, it's normal. If anything, it's okay for a human being to follow his heart's desires and just engage, as long as you have consent. They took something so valuable, so important in life, and they boiled it down just to the word consent. If that's not wacky, I don't know what is. And as a side note, be sure to check out my video on why I hate feminism, and you'll see how deeply wacky this particular point is. Number 4, homosexuality is now normal. Of course, if you tell the society to follow your heart's desires and you boil down intimacy just to consent, well, this has to apply to same sex. So they normalize homosexuality. And if you normalize homosexuality, then you gotta allow them to get married. And if you allow them to get married, you gotta allow them to adopt babies. And you see how one wacky idea leads to the next? It's like a chain reaction. And all this is normal under American culture. Number 5, marijuana is now okay to consume. Marijuana used to be a banned substance. It's still technically banned by the federal government in the US, but the hearts and minds, the perception has changed towards marijuana to the point where the state I'm in has now legalized marijuana. So now our youth are growing up thinking that it's okay to consume this haram plant. You see? Wacky. My list could go on, but the truth is, who knows what wacky idea is going to come next? There's always something new, something wacky that goes against Islamic norms and Islamic values like this list. Now, lucky for us Muslims, there's no real or reputable Islamic scholar walking around trying to change our Islamic rules. For example, nobody's walking around saying now homosexuality is halal or smoking marijuana is now halal. But if you think about it, what's the difference? If our kids' hearts and minds change because they're not properly equipped to deal with these new wacky ideas that we're living under, then the damage is done. Therefore, the only solution is we Muslims need to intellectually confront these ideas head on. For example, let's take the first one on my list, gender confusion, and see how I would have handled that particular topic if my kids were to ask me, right? And first and foremost, we should always cement in their minds that for all life's questions, we always go to Quran first. So what does Quran say about gender? Quran says, in English, I'll paraphrase, because since we're doing this video in English, O mankind, indeed we have created you male and female, and we have made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Verse 49:13. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is just stating an obvious fact. Allah, the creator of the universe, creator of human beings, created us in two forms, male and female. And this is just matching our physical reality. Even cavemen were able to figure out through their limited logic and their senses that, you know what, you and I have obvious physical differences and obvious behavioral differences. You are women and I am man. And then came modern science. And now we have microscopes and gene sequencing. And scientists are now able to open up the human body and see, oh, there you go, in the DNA, there's some form of XY for men and some form of XX for women. Again, two genders. So back to my kids and what do I tell them about gender confusion? I would tell them all of this. I would first explain to them that as Muslims, we must always look towards Quran and Sunnah to set the standard of what is right and wrong. I would then explain the difference between good and bad culture, of course, as defined by Allah, like we're doing in this video. And I would show them the harmony between our logic, science, and Quran. And the goal of my talk with them is not simply to answer the question, but to set a theme within their mind that Allah is the one who sets the norm. That way, when they run across something, even if they're not around me, that's outside that norm, their minds will automatically make the connection that it's haram. Such as, how can two men or two women have a baby? You see my point? The fact is, we Muslims must always remember that we no longer live in protected Islamic environments where the state, or at the very minimum, a village will help raise your kids intellectually. And because of this unfortunate fact, we have to provide an answer that's deeper than haram and halal. And the only way for you to do that is for you to know through Quran and Sunnah how to answer these wacky ideas. And that's why I make these videos. So not only you can learn what I've learned, but so you can use the video as a tool. For example, play the video, pause it, and have a talk about it. Play, pause. And you turn a 10-minute video into a 30-minute discussion with your kids. And considering what we live under, this discussion is vital. And to drive my point home, I conclude with a study that was published in April 2019 by a group of researchers from MIT and Harvard. They found that one of the best things that parents can do for their children is to have frequent back and forth exchanges with them. The study found that parents that do this will result in children with stronger communication skills, healthier relationships, and higher self-esteem. But I would add to the study that as Muslims, this frequent back and forth is imperative to keep your kids' moral compass aligned with Islamic values and not these wacky liberal ones, in addition to the other benefits. Makes sense if you think about it. Alright, that's all I have for this topic. As always, inshallah, you found this even a little beneficial. But for now, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Coach Danny keeping it real. I'm out.